You know, when it comes to napping, the advice is all over the place. Keep it short. No, make it long. Or maybe don't nap at all. It's really confusing. But what if I told you the most important rule isn't about how long you nap, but when you nap? Today, we're going to dig into the science that shows why the clock might be your single best guide to getting the perfect nap.
Oh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It hits you like a truck, right? It's the middle of the afternoon, your brain just turns to mush, and your eyelids feel like they're made of lead. That is your body sending you a very, very clear signal. The feeling is real. The big question is, what should you actually do about it?
All right, let's just cut right to the chase. If you take away only one thing from this, let it be this. For most of us on a pretty normal schedule, the golden rule is to avoid napping after 3 p.m. Now, that sounds super simple, I know, but the science behind that specific cutoff is actually fascinating. And once you understand it, you'll see how to use naps to supercharge your energy instead of accidentally ruining your night's sleep.
So to really get why 3 p.m. is that magic number, we have to look inside your brain. It turns out there are these two powerful forces that are in a constant battle to control when you feel sleepy and when you feel awake. Scientists call this the two-process model, but you can just think of it as being run by two competing clocks.
Okay, so clock number one is what we call your sleep drive. Think of it like a sleepiness meter. From the second you wake up in the morning, your brain starts building up this chemical called adenosine. It's just a natural byproduct of your brain being active and using energy. And this stuff builds and builds and builds all day long, creating more and more sleep pressure. The higher the pressure, the sleepier you get. Simple as that.
But, of course, if it was only about that sleep pressure, we'd all be desperate for a nap by lunchtime, right? That's where clock number 2 comes into play, your body clock, also known as your circadian rhythm. This is like your 24-hour master clock, and its main job during the day is to pump out a powerful alertness signal that fights against all that sleepiness. It's the reason you can stay awake and function.
So really, how you feel at any given moment is just the result of this constant tug of war. You've got the sleep pressure, process S, which just climbs steadily upward all day, and then you have your body clock, process C, which is pushing back with an alertness signal. Your entire energy level, your focus, it all depends on which one of these two is winning the battle.
And this right here, this is the secret. There's a chink in the armor. In the early afternoon, usually between about 1 and 3 p.m., that powerful alertness signal from your body clock takes a natural pre-programmed dip. At that exact same time, your sleep pressure is getting pretty high. And that mismatch, high sleepiness, low alertness, creates this perfect, biologically approved window for a nap. Your body is practically begging you for one.
So, napping inside that window, that's the sweet spot. But what happens if you ignore it? What if you decide to take a nap at, say, 5 p.m. instead? Well, this is where that seemingly harmless little nap starts to become a real problem for your night. It sets off a whole chain reaction.
Here's the fundamental issue with a late nap. It gets rid of too much of that adenosine, that sleep pressure we talked about. You need a full day's worth of that stuff to build up a strong appetite for sleep at night. A late nap is basically like eating a giant bag of chips right before a gourmet dinner. You've just relieved all that pressure, so when your actual bedtime rolls around, you're just not hungry for sleep anymore. You're wide awake.
And we can see the specific damage it does right here. That third row is the real kicker. When you nap too late, you often drop into deep, slow-wave sleep. That's the really good physically restorative stuff. And when that happens, your brain basically says, okay, cool, got some deep sleep done. The result? You end up stealing that precious deep sleep from your upcoming night. You've already paid part of the debt, so later that night your sleep is lighter and much more fragmented.
And this is how a really nasty cycle gets started. Just like the research says, you nap late, which means you can't fall asleep at a decent time. Because you go to bed late, you wake up exhausted. And because you're so exhausted the next day, you feel an even bigger, more desperate need for a nap, probably another late one. See the look? It's a classic trap, and it all can start with just one poorly timed nap.
Okay, so is this 3 p.m. rule an absolute, unbreakable law of nature for every single person? Well, not exactly. Your own personal biology can actually shift the goalposts a bit, so it's really important to figure out where you fit in. The biggest variable here is something called your chronotype. It's a fancy word, but all it really means is your natural genetic tendency to be a morning person, an evening person, or somewhere in the middle. Your chronotype pretty much dictates your body's entire 24-hour schedule, and that includes the timing of that all-important afternoon dip in alertness.
This makes it super clear, right? If you're a true morning lark, up at the crack of dawn, your ideal nap window is actually earlier, probably closer to noon. For you, a 3 p.m. nap is already way too late. On the flip side, if you're a serious night owl who naturally stays up till 2 or 3 in the morning, your alertness dip might not even hit until 4 or 5 p.m. So the real rule isn't just 3 p.m., it's about making sure there are at least 7 or 8 hours between when you wake up from your nap and when you plan to go to bed for the night. Now, the other really big exception here is shift workers. For people who work overnight, napping isn't a luxury. It's an absolutely critical tool for safety and performance. They use what are called prophylactic naps before a long shift to build up an alertness buffer. And for them, a longer 90-minute nap, maybe even in the evening, is often the best choice because it lets them get through one full sleep cycle, which provides more lasting benefits.
Okay, so we've nailed down the when. Now let's get into the how. Because if you're going to take a nap, you want to do it right. You want all of the benefits with none of that groggy, where am I, feeling when you wake up.
For most of us, the absolute sweet spot for a nap is somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. That's just long enough to get the refreshing benefits of light sleep and clear out some of that adenosine. But it's short enough to keep you from dropping into that very deep, slow wave sleep. Waking up from that is what causes that awful grogginess we all hate, which is officially called sleep inertia.
And now for my favorite biohack, the caffeine nap. Some people call it a nappuccino. I know, it sounds totally backwards, right? Drink coffee and then go to sleep, but the science is amazing. Here's how it works. You drink a cup of coffee or tea pretty quickly, and then immediately lie down for a 20-minute nap. Now, it takes about 20 minutes for the caffeine to actually get into your bloodstream and take effect. While that's happening, your short nap is clearing out all that sleepy adenosine, so you wake up right as the caffeine shows up and it finds all these clean, empty receptors in your brain to latch onto. It is a powerful 1-2 punch of alertness. It really works.
And finally, let's not forget the basics. To really get the most out of that quick nap, you've got to set the stage. Make the room cool, dark, and quiet. Your body temperature actually needs to drop a little to fall asleep, so a cooler room really helps. And this last one is crucial. Set an alarm, and when it goes off, you get up. No snoozing. Promise me.
So, that mid-afternoon slump? It's not a character flaw, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a biological signal, pure and simple. So the real question is, how are you going to respond? Will you use that signal to take a short, strategic nap and reboot your entire system? Or will a poorly timed nap end up stealing sleep from your night? The clock is always ticking, the choice is yours.